morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Joe, Dr. Energy Piazza.
Rara is in the house. Catherine Asaro Myers.
Welcome back to BU Network Podcast, Conversations Worth Having. On our podcast, you can expect three things. 1, the BU guest moment. 2, the BU moment. And 3, the BU final moment.
As promised, we are giving you a very special audible on each show. Your job, well, not your job, it's to find it. You know the game Where's Waldo? Well, here we will ask you to listen for that audible.
I am so excited to be here today with this, with our BU moment, and to be speaking to our guest, Rhonda Moffatt, today.
Well, I'm glad that you are going to be yourself today, because sometimes, Dr. Energy, I wonder if you're someone else when you come to our show.
Well, today, actually, I am standing here in my office. I have my Green Lantern ring on, and I actually had my Green Lantern sweater on, but it was just too warm to be wearing that today. So I am being myself as Green Lantern, or being Green Lantern as myself. I don't know how that works, but...
Well, okay, let me ask you a few more things, because
Sure.
I really would like to know, in your BU moment, what's going on in your head?
So the part of the reason I'm wearing the Green Lantern ring and I had the sweater on was because our guest today is going to be talking about her book, Seeing Energy. So basically the energy flow in our lives, how life moves through us and with us, and how we move with it. And what I like about, for those of you who don't know Green Lantern, the superhero, is that he could focus energy with his ring through the power of his will, through the power of his mind and heart, to create a physical construct of energy. So that's how I felt today when I was getting ready to record this podcast, was feeling like I wanted to focus my energy to be really, really present, even more than usual, and be able to take that energy and focus it into something concrete.
You're a superhero today.
I'm a superhero every day.
Every day.
Specifically Green Lantern today.
Green Lantern superhero today. I love that.
And what about you?
Oh, well, I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning getting ready for our recording, because today it was just a little bit different. And my BU moment is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And one of the things I did is I put this fragrance called Melt. Melt Nocturne. So I bought this in Niagara on the Lake at Natasha Bradley, such a great store. And this is one of their fragrances. And I thought, I'm going to melt into today's show.
Nice.
I wanted to blend the seeing, the hearing, the energy, the healing. I wanted it all to come together so that I could be empowered for the rest of the day, because later on I'll be going to my yin, get my yin on.
Yeah.
So I want to melt all that seeing, healing, feeling energy.
Right.
And I want to put it all together so that I can have a powerful yin and be the best that I can be. There's one other thing that I added to what I'm bringing to my BU moment, and that is making best use of my time.
Right.
And not wasting other people's time. So I want to melt that right into my being today.
Excellent. That's amazing. And that being, not wanting to waste time, yours or others, those are awesome boundaries to have. Oftentimes we have friends or people we know who they routinely show up 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes late, and they don't think anything of it. And they don't even apologize for being late. To them, it's 15 or 20 minutes late is actually on time. I'm sure you know people like this, right? And to be honest, I used to be one of those people. I'd show up 10 minutes late and think I'm on time, and I don't do that anymore, because I realized how disrespectful that was. Of when I set a time with somebody to be somewhere, I'm going to be there on time. I'm going to be there ahead of time.
Well, Dr. Energy, I'd like to say this about that. Whatever you used to do, I bet it didn't involve Calendly or Acuity or Bookify, because my Calendly link pings you, dings you, texts you, emails you, and reminds you that if you forget that you have an appointment with me, it's because you're sleeping and your phone is off. Because it pings me and shows up on my phone and my computer screen, and it tells me 10 minutes, Joe, 10 minutes, and it lets me know, and it keeps showing me. So there's no way I can say, well, I really didn't know and I forgot. So
there's no excuses anymore, right? You can't fake it anymore.
No, and about not wanting to waste other people's time, I find that if I decide to speak to someone and I'm really not prepared, and then soon or shortly after that, they figure out I'm not prepared and I waste their time, they're not going to give me their time next time. They're going to say, look, you're not prepared. You're just taking time away. And if I want to be productive, I would like to get the best from someone else. So I really consider that when I'm melting this powerful feeling of how I could do what I need to do, what I want to do, and then think about the other person. So with this day and age of technology, our digital world keeps us in check.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and that's what I love, that we spend so much time preparing for these podcasts and show up ready to go. And I think that really creates a great space for our guests when they come on. They know that we're ready to go and they're going to get our best in that moment. So.
Right. Yes. And our audience gets the very best of everyone. This are great moments. I love this. I just need to mention that my 7.5 pound, yes, I said 7.5 pound dumbbell. It is still not my 10-pound dumbbell. It's always with me. There is no question about that.
Nice.
And I have a really nice myrrh oil in my diffuser today.
Nice.
So I'm melting and myrrhing at the same time.
Myrrh melt.
That's it.
Melt myrrh? Myrrh melt? Melt myrrh? I don't know. Sounds like some kind of weird planet or something. I don't know.
And that's where I'm from.
At least today, in this moment.
I love it.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a great place for us to segue to our guest, Rhonda, today and get on with this podcast about seeing energy. I think it's going to be a really good one.
Yes, and I will introduce Rhonda to us right now.
Excellent. See you on the other side.
How nice to have us here again together, Dr. Energy. I love what our show is going to be about today, especially this amazing, amazing guest that we have. Let me share some inside information, if you don't mind. I'll give some detail, and then I'll go into some what we can call the backstory.
Yeah, right. That sounds good.
So our guest's name is Rhonda Moffatt.
Yes.
And Rhonda Moffatt is an author. She's so many things. She has intuitive coaching, energy balancing, Reiki techniques, and an in-private practice for purpose of providing personal awareness and support of those disciplines. The Energy Institute, it's not a medical or a mental health care professional service, and accordingly cannot and will not provide medical or psychological advice. Right. Services offered by the Energy Institute, Inc. are only for the sharing of important skills and tools involved in increasing personal awareness and balancing personal energy through the use of Eastern disciplines and personal energy. I'll give you some of the modalities.
Wow,
Feng Shui.
Awesome. Sounds really awesome.
I know, I can't wait to get into this. Feng Shui, intuitive coaching, energy balancing, and Reiki are only some factors in the management of health and personal energy. Ultimately, it's up to each client as to whether he or she chooses to follow the sharing of information and skills provided by Rhonda Moffatt at the Energy Institute, Inc. And that it may be advisable, as per Rhonda's disclaimer, to consult with your own medical, mental, and other applicable professionals prior to doing so. But Dr. Energy, let me tell you, this is backstory. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. No, I'm so excited for to have Rhonda here, and especially, Rhonda and I have chatted a few times in the past as well. And so the fact that I got to introduce her to you, and now we get to introduce Rhonda to a wider audience as well, and I'm really excited. So.
Yeah, so am I. And thank you for that introduction, because, we really hit it off. Like, that was just such an amazing connection. But I want to tell you a little bit about Rhonda before we roll up our sleeves and ask Rhonda stories about her book. So there's a backstory. You know, everybody has a story.
Right.
And the story that I've read over and over again, I've been reading it for weeks, actually. And each time I read it, I actually imagine myself in Rhonda's shoes. Because I'm thinking, well, that was so courageous of Rhonda. Rhonda went to Costa Rica, and I'm going to talk to her a little bit about this as part of our interview and our conversation. Rhonda went to Costa Rica, and while she was on Costa Rica, she managed to, and there are no coincidences, managed to find her Mayan energy reader. And this is what I would like to talk a little bit about with Rhonda. Rhonda Moffatt, are you with us?
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Hello, yes. Oh, thank you so much for being here with us. Rhonda, you are such an adventurous woman. I would like to ask you, like right off the bat, my first question, can you bring us back to that moment in Costa Rica when you found and discovered on the internet your Mayan energy reader?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
So Costa Rica was a bucket list thing. I'm a Canadian surfer, which is to say I surf baby waves like any good Canadian living in Ottawa on the canal, right? There's no place to practice. But when I have the opportunity to surf, I love to get in the waves. Was heading for surf camp, was at, the 5-star resort in the middle of nowhere, and just started Googling for energy workers. I've been studying energy work for the past 3 decades. The day job at the time, have a background in legal admin, doing all the administrative stuff, and for 30 years, studying all of the energy work, so curious about, how it's offered in different places, because there was certainly an alignment between the crafts that I had studied. So tripped across this girl, and people were like, oh, you have to go see her, you must go see her. And she was an hour away from the resort, and as it turned out, down in Tamarindo is where all the surf camps are. It's the warmer water, right? So I thought, okay, a twofer, let's get the driver, get in the car, and go. And I figured it was a shop, these kitschy little shops in these tourist areas, and the driver couldn't find her. So, here my significant other and I were sitting in the back seat of this, rented car for the day, and we're in literally the mountains in Costa Rica.
Right.
And
middle of nowhere.
He says, right. And he says, do you have her number? I said, sure. And, you can hear them speaking Spanish to one another, and we're pulling down this dirt lane on the side of a mountain. So now we can't see the ocean. So I have no bearings that, I'm where I need to go. And we pull up this dirt road, and he points up the hill, and there's this little kind of veranda attached to what I presume is a house in behind it. But you see fruit trees and iguanas and this dirt road. And Dean turns and looks at me and says, you think I am leaving you in this place by yourself? You are out of your mind. And I'm like, well, maybe, right?
The male protective instinct.
Yeah. Right. But even the female protective instinct of if anything happens, if there's some type of wildlife behind these iguanas that I don't know about, I'm about to spend 3 hours with this woman. I have never met her. I'm in a foreign country, and, he's going to surf camp. I said I would meet him at surf camp. Surf's up in a couple hours. He's going to have a couple of beers or whatever, right? I'm going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And now we're like, oh, this may not be fine. So you have that moment where you take a breath and you just feel the space that you're in. And I started questioning, what are the odds that I'd be in Costa Rica? What are the odds that this, I trip across this woman and people are like, yes, you must go see her. What are the odds that she had time for a 3-hour Mayan reading where they actually sketch out your Mayan path? It's not insignificant what this woman does. And that we found her and that we're here. And I thought, nope, I'm doing this. One way or the other, I'm doing this. So it did take some convincing to be able to get out of the car. And she was very lovely. She came down the laneway and says, come on in. She's going to be fine. The driver knows where you are. Don't worry about it. And the driver says, yeah, that's true. We do know where she is. So
we know now you do, yeah.
Exactly, right? So it all turned out for the better. That was a life-changing moment. And at one point during my path and my reading, this woman said, listen, if you go home, I hadn't started studying Feng Shui yet, but she said, if you go home and study Feng Shui and open an energy business, you will be successful.
Right.
Now, give you some context. I'm in the 6-figure job. I've been doing law and legal admin for 30 years and, various disciplines, whether it's corporate or criminal law or whatever it is. And you're thinking, yeah, sure, lady. Because when you're legal and you're that reasonability to it. I come from a legal background family, and my brother's an engineer, and everything's very logical. So when you start talking about the Eastern crafts, people kind of cock an eyebrow at you, right? So I said, okay, I'm all right. I'll do this. And it sat with me for the rest of the trip. And I thought, yeah, this message came for a reason. And then when I got home, I just didn't like my job anymore. Wasn't into it. So I quit. 6 figures and all. I said, no, today is the day. And started, Googling where I could learn Feng Shui in Ottawa. There's a lovely woman by the name of Lillian Tu, who is a world-renowned expert in Malaysia. And I knew that I wasn't going to go to Malaysia, and I still haven't been. What with Huawei and the things that you hear on the news, I'm just not comfortable to get on a plane and do that level of teaching right now, for fear that I end up in a prison someplace for no fault of my own.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a fun experience.
She does have an online course, so I started studying locally with one of her students who was lovely in her offerings, and I am now doing my master's course with Lillian, and I'll be done within the next month or so. So all of that to say, practice in between and keep leaning towards things. Led to the book, led to writing the book, led to publishing the book, led to the book signing, which led to the website, which led to the company, and now we're here.
Wow.
Well, Rhonda, that's, I can imagine being in that bus, in that car with you. I understand it was a driver in a car. And I'm wondering, how was that for you as you were going through your moments of doubt? Because I read the story and, you had hopeful thoughts, of course, and there were some moments of doubt. How did you push through the moments of doubt to get out of the car and to go and see this woman?
I have lots of those moments. I think we all have lots of those moments. It's easier to stay in the doubt. It's easier to stay where you're comfortable, right?
Right.
Now, my appetite for risk, which probably goes a bit far for the context of this conversation, my child, quote unquote, is my Rottweiler, right? So I'm the youngest of 2, and it's not like, I must protect the children and I have to be very safe about these things. So when I risk, I get that it's me. It's my company, my stuff, my things. I'm getting out of the car. I have extended family and I have a significant other. I have those things, but I'm told it's not the same when you have children and they're like, you're responsible to them, if you will, right? So do it or die, right? This is the moment. This is what life's about. You're going to get out of the car. You're going to have the experience. You're going to be in whatever this is going to be, and you're going to get yourself out. I am confident of all of those things all of the time. So out we go. It's when other people around you, be it, your parents or your significant other, going, are you sure? It gives you that moment of pause, right? So sometimes you respect that moment of pause because it continues to come in synchronicities, and other times you just have to make the decision in the moment and push through. And that was it. I'm this far. I'm however many miles I am from home in that moment. And we're doing this today, right now. And whatever it is 3 hours from now is going to be what it's going to be. And that was it.
So you pushed through it. So I'm sorry, Joe, I just have another question.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I see that what you did is you started writing your book for the rest of the year. And then you completed your Feng Shui studies, and then you launched your company a year after that. So after quitting your 6-figure job, you went right into writing the book. How did you get into that? When so many times we hear people say, I started writing, I couldn't write, I did write. How did that work for you? You quit your job and then you're right there, you get right into writing a book, and a year later, you have your new company launched.
Right. It didn't happen so sequentially as much as all at once.
Okay.
So the book had really written itself over my 30 years of studying the various crafts.
All the sticky notes.
You keep an article. Pardon me?
All the sticky notes.
The sticky notes, the emails, the articles, whatever it is, right? So again, upon returning home from Costa Rica, anything I have ever studied, I keep the notes on. And all the time I was gathering and collecting this, people would say, you're preparing for something. What are you preparing for? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll know when it hits me. I don't know what it is. So if you picture that I have transparent bins, and then all of the information in it is color-coded by binders, I knew what I had and where I had it.
Wow.
So when I came home from Costa Rica, I went to my folks' basement. They have a home just outside of the city where most of this stuff is stored. And I brought it all back, and I surrounded my dining room with it. And my dining room kind of goes back into my kitchen, which is where I keep my computer. Because again, when you're a single woman, your computer is usually where the dinette is, right? Because when you're cooking dinner, whatever it is, the phone rings, you got to get to it. You sit on your computer and you go. So I had these bins all lined around the condo And I started to invite over different groups of people and said, what do you see? What do you see here by way of a company? What do you see? And one of them came over and said, this is a book just waiting to happen. I'm not sure that it's a company, but all of this information, the book is already written, simply put it together chapter by chapter. And I was like, wasn't I just told this in Costa Rica? Like, I thought, okay. And as I started to organize the notes, it really came through a little bit of research. And my former husband is a professional writer and broadcaster. So a little bit of structure on how the book comes together and what that looks like. And if you want your book to be edited beyond all things, give it to your ex-husband. We started 190 pages and it gets cut down very quickly, which was fantastic. We're still great friends, and he was a very, very handy resource to have. Right. But when we sat down and figured out what the chapters were going to be and what the theme of the book was going to be and how we were going to get the message across, the rest just wrote itself, really.
Right.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Dr. Energy, I didn't want to monopolize the questions to Rhonda. Okay, may I ask one more?
Sure. And then I've got a question after that.
Okay, yes. So that's why I wanted to make sure that outline is okay. So Rhonda, let me go into the writing of the book. So I see that you had all the sticky notes, or I read that you have all the sticky notes, and you collected information for 30 years. Now, the fact that you organized all of that and that you knew somehow, some way to keep it, was there something along those 3 decades that you had a vision of? And is that vision what you have right now?
Short answer is no. I knew I was keeping it for something, right? So whatever your intuition tells you or leads you to, we all have something that we've kept, or a letter that we've kept, or something that's resonated with us. Mine just was on a larger scale. I knew that teaching was valuable. Mm-hmm. I'm also a part-time teacher at Algonquin College. That's my alma mater. And my value that I received from people that have taught me when I was a learner is whatever you learn, whatever your education is, nobody can ever take from you, and you will always know that, right? So it was an offering to me, and I thought these offerings somehow, some way, have a way of paying it forward. And I knew when I did my post-secondary education, living at home and law and community building family. And my brother was already in university, and I was on the party trail, right? I wanted to party and be with my friends. And as art credits towards my diploma in high school, I obtained my hairdressing qualifications and licensing. I could work and do things. And my parents looked me dead in the eye and said, you are going to post-secondary. Pick something, you're going. If only for the experience, you're going to do this. So the only thing I knew was law. I had natural aptitudes towards wellness and healing, and it was all very cool. But my father being a police officer, my brother being a mechanical engineer, my mother being a community builder, you're not leaning towards the Eastern crafts at 18, 19, 21. You're doing what they tell you to do. So that's how that came about. Was pick something, you're going, and then with all of the other stuff, it's your interest. It's something. This is going to be something, I don't really know what it's going to be. So I kept all of it, and as it turns out, there's a common thread through every single thing, whether it's the alignment at work, the alignment at home, the alignment of your personal self, the alignment with each of the Eastern crafts. Regardless the craft, it is the same center point. And once I understood that, and had a Mayan reader say, this is what you're doing now, I'm like, that is what I've been doing. Somebody made it very clear to me. Then it was easy to articulate. I got it. It took me, 46 years to do it, but that's when I understood it, and that's when it became what it is now.
Nice.
Thank you. Dr. Energy, I'll give the floor to you and Rhonda.
Pass the stick, the talking stick.
Yeah.
Sometimes, just what you were saying there, Rhonda, sometimes it just takes that outsider's perception, right, to help us see our blind spot, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be we wouldn't call it a blind spot, right?
Right. Well, we like to think we know what we're doing from moment to moment.
I long ago abandoned that thought.
Yeah.
I've learned that that's not the case, at least not most of the time. And what I heard from through your story, and as you were relating the process of not just starting the business and writing the book, but through your life, is really the chapters of the book, what you call it, the wellness principles. And I can hear the threads of all of those running through your story. So it's, you know, you're very much living what you're teaching. So I was, if you wouldn't mind just running through some of those wellness principles, that'd be fantastic.
Practice, if you will, the practice of living.
The practice of living, that's a great way. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it is a practice, and the wellness principles, which I find are the common thread through all of it, start with the principle of thought or your intention, right? So your thoughts become things, right? And then the process of manifesting those thoughts exists for a reason. If we all, being every person on the face of the planet, intended a pink elephant and it was instant, there would be no place for the people. It would be full of pink elephants, right? So the process is there for a reason. So if you hang on to your thoughts long enough and you stay focused with them, they become things.
Right.
The second principle is that of perception. You understand your world based on your own experiences, and they're filtered by your own adaptations. That leads to your judgment. Your perception may or may not be correct for what your intention is, and sometimes you just need to turn that dial a quarter turn, and sometimes it takes somebody else's perception to give you laser focus. Choice and accountability being the third principle. You choose how you feel about your experiences. And if you don't like it, the best part is you get to change your mind, but you are accountable to what your choices are.
Risk tolerance.
Sorry?
Risk tolerance.
Exactly, right. And so, but again, right, when you're doing those transitions, when you've made the choice, the uncomfortable part of that is how you know you're in the transition. You're going to come out the other side. Everything is eventual, right? Cause and effect, what goes around comes around, what you put out comes back to you. So continue to put good out, say pleasant things, be in a good space, be responsible for the energy you're bringing into the space. If you're the person that wakes up every morning to AC/DC, and screaming out of bed and bringing that into traffic and into work in the morning, you're likely not very pleasant to hang out with for the day. Conversely, if you're looking after your personal self and you enjoy having a latte and walking the dog, and that's how you're going to start your day, it's going to be a very different energy that you bring to the space.
I mean, that's cause
abundance and gratitude, as stated. I'm thankful for all of it, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the fun stuff, the not so fun stuff. This life thing continues to be such a great ride. And I'm just so thankful and grateful for all of it. Health and healing is the process of being whole, WHOLE, not whole, jump in and wish you
No, then you cover up with dirt if you do that.
Wholeness. Right? So like Western philosophy and practice suggests that you're responsible for your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. And you'll find that when you incorporate all those principles into your life, you begin to understand what it takes to enjoy the state of being whole, WHOLE. And finally, harmony and rhythm. So all the wellness principles work together in harmony. You're meant to be at one with the universe. The principle focuses on combining all of the principles and applying them together in patterns that work in your life. So harmony and rhythm in this country, look at the seasons. What you would choose to eat in winter is very different from what you would choose to eat in summer, and your body responds to those things, and your moods respond to those things, and your choices respond to those things. So as it naturally moves, as the earth naturally moves around you and the elements naturally move around you, when you're in sync with them, so is your life. To say it's simple and that difficult, it's both.
Right. Simple, but I always like to say it's simple, but not always easy because of the way life happens sometimes. So there's a couple things that jumped out at me there. Cause and effect. You mentioned about, what goes around comes around. To me, I like to call that the boomerang effect, right? It's like you have this boom, and one of my mentors, Donnie Epstein, talks about this. It's like you have this boomerang and you load it up with all your energy and you fire it out into the world, and then it attracts and connects with all the other energies that are similar to what you loaded up your boomerang with, and then it comes back to you with all the gifts that are attached to that. And we get to choose how we respond to what comes back, right? So it's that choice and accountability, our perception, and we can choose to be grateful for it or to curse it. And whichever you choose, or somewhere in between, is going to be how your life unfolds. Like, you mentioned the AC/DC. Right. And some days it's both. Yeah. You know, you mentioned AC.
Right.
I love me some AC/DC sometimes, but not first thing in the morning when I get out of bed. That's not the way
But
I
you've
want to
met
start
the people that you are sure got out of bed listening to that, right?
Oh, I you know, in my professional,
you've seen them in traffic.
I see them in my professional practice. I see that. So, yeah. So I just want to say that's, you know, the way that you've laid out each of these principles was really, really helpful for a lot of people who might not be familiar with how they all work together.
Well, thank you. It's one of the key reasons for writing the book. That, and then there's at the back of the book are the levels of human consciousness, which is not my work. No. It is everywhere, you know, over the internet. I believe it's in The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And when I could recognize where I wanted to be in those 17 levels of human consciousness, and the book lays out how that whole patterning works. The two things needed to happen. Number one, I need to align my life with that particular level of vibration. So when you're vibrating out those things, energy begets like energy. But the tough part is we as humans get into patterns, and we're so used to whatever those patterns are. You have to have the courage to let go the things that aren't at the level that no longer serve you. And that's a hard thing to do because it could be a person, it could be a habit, it could be a job, and it's what you know. So again, when you get in that uncomfortable thing of it might be a very lonely space for you anymore, it just means that your life is adjusting to that level of vibration that you have now chosen. When you know that you're doing that, you can be a little more patient with the process because you can identify it, right?
Right.
So thank you for that, Rhonda. I'd like to go into another subject that you talked about with perception, if we can just take a minute or so for that. I think it's amazingly profound, and I love how you talk about that there is strength in simply being in this moment, as I read from your book on page 21. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because there are times that people will think, this is a tough moment. How can there be strength in that? How can they push through that?
Well, there are lots of examples. But when you're in that moment is the universe handing you the teachable moment. Right? So if it's uncomfortable or it's strange to you or it's how did I get here or why is this happening? As we talk about the process of manifesting, when you put something out there, when you put an intention out there, everybody says, oh, you know, I want to win the lottery. Okay, fine. That's your intention. So you have to be very clear with intentioning because you will get what you intended and that might not be what you expected, right? So what will happen is you're not going to win the lottery right away. And most people have already won the lottery. If you bought a ticket, you won a free ticket or $2 or whatever the thing is. What you want to intend is lottery jackpot, right? So now that we've got our intention correct, that we want the jackpot win, thank you very much. No matter how big your intention is, the universe can connect it. Sometimes it just takes a little longer because your intention is enormous, right?
Right.
And then what will happen is something that I refer to as an alpha reflection or a first reflection. So you put the intention out there and you're walking to your car and you find a quarter. And that's the universe signifying to you, hey, heard you. There it is, right? It's right in front of you. So you pick it up, you thank them for the universe for the sign or whatever that is, and you go about your day. After that, you will find for a period of time, as things are manifesting, your beta reflections are going to show up. And these are the uncomfortable things. So maybe people are recommending the same book or the same banker or whatever those alignments are. And most times you go, oh, that's a coincidence. Oh, no, I'm not going to read that book. Or, oh, why should I? That is the universe saying to you in those uncomfortable moments, we are preparing you that when we gift you, you will have everything you need, to receive the gift, to accept it, to process it, and to use it to the highest intention. Right. Without that teaching or that uncomfortable, how many people win the lottery and blow it and their life crumbles, right? Because they didn't pay attention to the signs, they didn't stay in the uncomfortable, and they didn't prepare.
Right. They end up right back where they were before right. Sometimes worse. Yeah.
The boomerang effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, literally, yeah.
We hear that so often. Wait a minute. Oh, that was too funny.
Trouble with the Audible today. We got Audible on the Audible.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you guess what that is. I'm leaving it at that because I wanted it to be difficult today. That was my intention. I'd like to ask another question, if it's okay with everybody. I'd like to talk about Rhonda, as you're speaking, I'm really imagining you. You have such a wonderful voice and such a great way of bringing us into the moment. I feel like I was there with you in Costa Rica. I understand what you're talking about. It just takes me there. There's something about you that draws me in. So I'm sure our audience is going to feel that. You're welcome. I'm sure our audience is going to feel that. Maybe it's just because I'm enamored with you. From the minute that we started speaking, it was the way that you opened yourself. One of your testimonials says that your joy is contagious. I can feel that. Your joy is contagious.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know what you're like on a bad day. I'm not really too sure, but all I can say is I can feel the happiness and the joy that you have. And reading your book and listening to you, I'm certain that after our audience listens to this podcast and then they read your book, they will hear your voice in that book. And that is so powerful. It would be my intention to have every one of your readers hear your voice first, read the book, and then hear your voice repeat it. You know, tell them what you told them, and then tell them. I can hear that. I guess I'd love to hear an audible on that book. You know, I really, really appreciate that. And that brings me to my final moment. I'd like to talk a little bit about.
Before you do that?
Oh, yes, go right ahead.
That sounds like another business idea for making an audio book. I don't know if you've got plans for that already or not, but.
Yeah, so right now, I keep a business plan and I run it about every 4 months, and it's my own report card, if you will.
Right.
And what I am looking at doing now is if you go to the product section of my website, you will see the book. And then I have similar to tarot cards, if you will, made up for seeing energy, but that's a whole graphic design thing that needs to be laid out. I want to do a Energy Institute tarot card deck as an offering. And then I want to look into doing online classes. My challenge right now with online classes, I am looking into it, I am trying to put something together, is that I would like my audience to get something for it. So I would like it to be accredited with either Natural Health Practitioners Canada or ANN Canada or somebody,
right.
And I'm working with them to see what those parameters are right now. So Overnight Sensation, I have everything pulled out. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at different teaching platforms to see what works. Again, I'm a teacher at Algonquin. Do I want what they use? Do I want to put it together in something else? So if you can picture, at some point, I will be sitting here day after day, putting together course structures, speaking into a microphone, putting slide decks together into something that can be packaged and put on the website. That is looking like the next 18 months of my life. So we'll see what that looks like. It's all very exciting.
Yes, and listening to your voice, whether it's in a new business or in the business of your courses, I think that's extremely powerful, and I look forward to hearing what you're doing and to hearing more of you and more about you too. I'd like to talk about what we're getting out of today, if that's okay with you. And in BU Network, this is called our BU Final Moment. And in this final moment, we can just take a minute to reflect on what's been happening in this episode today about Rhonda Moffatt. And Rhonda, your amazing book, the name of your book, Seeing Energy, The Art of Living with Life's Flow. I'd like to go around the room and ask what your takeaway is. So Rhonda, may I start with you, and then Dr. Energy will go to you, and then I'll circle around back to me. Okay, awesome. So Rhonda, what is your final moment from today? Your biggest takeaway, if you could wrap it up.
My biggest takeaway is I am thankful and grateful that you two have invited me to the show. And my biggest hope is that my work resonates with your audience, and that the work helps them see energy in their own lives and helps them make their way through their own transitions.
Thank you.
Wow, that is probably the best summary or takeaway that I have heard somebody give on the episode. They're very succinct to the point. I very much like that.
Yes.
Thank you. That's high praise coming from you.
Well, sometimes sometimes you give people an opportunity to talk, and they talk.
Well, may we hear from you, Dr. Energy?
Absolutely. So for me, the takeaway from today is very much Rhonda being somebody who walks her talk. She has laid out these principles and follows them in her life. Like I said, Rhonda and I have sat down and had coffee together before a couple times, and just the consistency with which she lives her life with these principles and sharing it consistently with people. I mean, I'm I follow her on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm always seeing posts of, being out at the chapters, sharing the book and doing tarot readings and everything. So Rhonda definitely is somebody who walks the talk. And I really appreciate people in my life who walk their talk, who have that integrity and that authenticity to live their life that way. So I just want to say thank you very much for that.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
And then how about you, Catherine? What was your learning point or takeaway for today?
Well, my takeaway, and I really felt that I was right in there with Rhonda when she talked about her satiation for risk. And I thought, I can relate to that. And I love it. It brought me to where Rhonda was. And I'm thinking, I certainly can think about the moments in my life where I've taken risks sitting on that catamaran. And
I was just thinking that too, jumping in the water, saying, I don't swim, and I'm jumping in the water.
Yeah, you know that story about holding the hand of a man I hardly knew, and now we're together.
That was a great story.
That is the risk taking. It really spoke to me. And Rhonda, I have children, so I have a daughter. And at that moment, the risk was not the thing that made me nervous or scared me. I felt that it's either, you either got it or you don't. And either you can do it or you can't do it. And I just related to that. And my moment was, yes, Rhonda, we're going to have coffee this week. You don't even know that. We're coming to Ottawa. We're going to connect after Joe. And
exciting.
Yes. I'm excited for that too. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So yes, you're drawing me directly to you. And I love the idea about you sharing. And I love the fact that you shared and made yourself so transparent about that. And now we all have, and it's amazing. So your book is an inspiration. Your conversation is an inspiration, and you being you with us on BU Network is certainly going to be an inspiration for your audience and ours, because now we're all family. So we share the same audience, and I look forward to growing that together.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to hang out with you too.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. All right.
Have a great day.
Have an awesome day, Rhonda.
Yes.
Thanks, and to you and your audio listeners as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Sharing is caring. Tell your friends about conversations worth having on BU Network. We really appreciate your reviews, and you can do that on Apple Podcast. Thank you.
For show notes and links, go to www.b-u.network/podcasts. Connect with us via our website, www.b-u.network, and build a relationship with us. Sign up to receive information, updates, and your free video training at www.b-u.network/pro.
We're looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you for being with us. Ciao.
Ciao, babies.